Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is. So today, this is going to be the long-awaited Halo Infinite discussion with not only Clay, who's been with me for this journey for like the last... When did they first show this game? Like 2020 with the gameplay reveal, I think? I think it was 2020.
Yeah, 2020.
2020. Okay, so you've been with me this whole time, just seeing how it's unfolded. But not only do I have Clay today,
Yeah.
I have his brother M, who
what's going on?
Yeah,
Who was like the lore of Halo?
Yeah, the big
Halo guy.
So the spectrum. I think the spectrum. I assume it runs from like M is the biggest, like most knowledgeable out of all of us
boy.
towards Halo.
Yep, the lore boy.
And then Clay, you're probably like, I'm gonna assume you're like in that halfway point between M and the midway point.
Yeah. I pretty much played all the games. At least, like, so I have at least almost all the game knowledge. I haven't played Halo Wars though. Make it clear.
Okay.
I haven't played Halo because I suck and I don't like strategy games.
And I'm probably like the midway point between the middle and someone who's like super duper like unknowledgeable of it. Excuse me, but like I know the basics, but I don't know a lot of like the big like intricacies of the lore or anything. So just in the beginning, we'll just do our normal. We'll just like 2-3 minutes to say like non-spoilery what we each thought of the campaign, and then we'll go from there and we'll see what it's like. So M, I will start with you first.
All right. Well, thank you for having me on.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say, in the long scheme of things, I would not say that this is my most favorite Halo game, but it is definitely near the top of what I expected. You know, I don't have too many gripes with the game, but some of the gripes that I do have tend to be what I always expected from a Halo game. And it was a little unfortunate to have that. You know, I like the direction they went with in this game with the open world-ish aspect, kind of, and, you know, a definite more grounded experience with Master Chief and fewer characters in it, and less things like that, and how it's all just based in Zeta Halo. It is, you know, not going off world anymore or anything like that, but you know, there was still a decent moving parts in the story. What I didn't expect for this game was we had a lot of theories about what was going to happen. You know, I mean, we had an unsure future when it came from Halo 4 to Halo 5. Will things be retconned? Will there be soft reboots? What exactly is going to happen in this? And the story kind of threw me off because it actually ended up more being kind of a Halo Wars 2-ish continuation. You know, at the end of the day, I gotta say, variation was probably one of the biggest problems in this story, but the story itself was pretty decent. The gameplay was pretty good, and overall, I would say that this is definitely a Halo game that you need to play, you know, if you are into it, and generally, the only thing that I would have really wanted was definitely, again, just variation with Matt and all that. But other than that, I really enjoyed the campaign, and I can't wait for DLC.
Clay, would you like to go next, or would you like to have me go?
You go. I'll go last. I'll go last.
Okay. So I think we can. Are we in? I'll start with this. Are we in agreement that this is the best of the 3 mainline games under 343's tenure?
Oh, without a doubt, yeah. Totally.
Okay.
Oh my god,
so
yeah.
I think so we can agree on that. This is the best one out of the 3. What I liked, I'll start with the positive things. I like the voice acting a lot, which I'll get into the writing, but I thought everyone did a really good job as far as performances go. Even though I don't think the material was that good for them to work with. I like some elements of the open world stuff. Like, I love the grappling hook. I don't know how they can continue this series now without the grappling hook, because that thing is so much fun to use, just to swing around. And I was really surprised, too, by the freedom that you're given with it. Because once you just upgrade the cooldown, you can pretty much just swing wherever you want, and there's really no, and the game pretty much encourages you to do it by hiding skulls in areas that would otherwise be inaccessible. I love the grunt dialogue. The grunt dialogue is hilarious. The marine dialogue is hilarious. All that stuff, the endless amount of funny things that they can say, I really loved all that. But for me, under 343's tenure with these games, I still feel like they are 0 for 3 for me. I thought this campaign was weak. I thought it was very poorly stitched together, and for me, it really goes to show, like, I can only imagine how this game would have looked and played like a year ago when they were gonna put this out in 2020. It would have been a disaster. But I think this is just a prettier, more fan servicey heavy, like it's like all of 343's missteps as far as writing and world building and pacing and storytelling. They're all still there, but they're slathered underneath this like veneer of fan servicey, like Combat Evolved art style kind of thing. Like it's all of the same mistakes from the past 343 games are still here, but they are more, I guess, more well hidden behind this veneer of reverence for the Bungie era and all that. So I did not like this game at all. I thought the first half was okay, and then my patience broke in the second half, and I have, which we'll get into, I have a lot of problems with the game overall. I thought it was very just mediocre overall, unfortunately. So, that's me.
That's fair. That's fair.
Oh, I was about to say, it's like, bro, if you're talking fan service, man, I can imagine you two going off at Spider-Man No Way Home over that.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it yet, so.
Yeah, well, you know, that's a topic for another day.
Yeah.
Okay. So my opinion. So, it's like, me personally, I just like to do it short and sweet if I possibly can. So, in a nutshell, if I put my rankings, right? So we'll go from like kind of, okay, so like this. The definitive free, Halo 1 to free, is it going to go into the big boys club? Absolutely not. I don't think it's nowhere near still like with the trilogy. Does it actually like go with like the 5? Is it like a piece of garbage? No, I don't think so. Is it it's like a toughie. Yeah, it's certainly no Halo Reach. Still no Halo Reach. It's, to me personally, it's very complicated again with the ranking. I would personally say it's either okay, like almost like Halo 4, or it's like again, it's okay with Halo ODST. I think it's sandwiched between, to me, Halo ODST and Halo 4. But I'll say like this personally, like the acting is really, really solid. I especially like one particular character that we'll talk about later once we get into the spoiler territory. Gameplay is really, really solid. I said before on my streams that like I think the gameplay is like reminds me of when I played Halo 2 and Halo Reach. It's kind of sandwiched between that. Grappling hook is Yeah, me and Razor were talking about like once you get grappling hook, it's like it's such a great mechanic. I remember people like going off saying that, oh, this is gonna ruin it. I was like, nope, nope. It's not certainly Doom Eternal levels of, oh, grappling around, but it certainly is like, oh, this is fun, movement, momentum, all this other stuff. And the variant guns are really good too. I really like using the BMR and assault rifle variants. Those were really good. And what else? Graphics were fine. I just set them to low. I set them to lowest settings to get the biggest like FPS possible. Multiplayer is good. The beat for beat gameplay is good. I hate the progression system though. Progression system is absolute dog doo doo. That's about it with Halo, like assuming, except like with the story missions, then you go, oh, inside tunnels. That's basically it. You got forests and tunnels. That's basically the nutshell of Halo Infinite's map design. But my overall thoughts is like it was okay. Like I said, I'd at least enjoy it if it was like a linear thing. But again, I kept saying if it was linear, the campaign would have been short as hell, and we might not have gotten like decent level design. Like as much as I hate Guardians, at least there was some level design variants. With this, it's like you get two level type designs, forests and tunnels, and that's it.
So basically, I was thinking a good topic to start off with was the world building in general.
That'd be good. It's first topic.
And this is, again, one of the things that is my gripe with the game, but I kind of like it. Now, when it came to other Halos and stuff like that, 343 actually usually tried to bring it more down to scale instead of other Halos that would usually, you'd be going to worlds several times, and stuff like that. And even though, or not really worlds, but you would be going to farther regions and stuff like that often. And this one, obviously, there's no variation in it. Rarely,
yep.
It's
there's
just
like I just said, it's all just like forests and tunnels. That's the thing with this game.
I like to add rooms with generators, and you have to go to other rooms to get orbs to power these generators.
Yep.
Right. And that was the one big issue that I've had with it, because I mean, not only that, when you look at the multiplayer maps too, you see these different places, and you'd think because that you're playing it, you're like, oh shit, we get to go to this like desert area, which is badass, because I've always loved desert maps in Halo, and I always thought, oh, they're gonna be in it, and then it's like a little foreshadowing to when Zeta Halo was in BCC, and it's like, I don't get it. I don't get why they went with that. I just think that it was better off that if maybe you could go around the planets to Zeta Halo instead of just stuck in Zeta Halo the whole time. But that's a whole thing for the story. It's just that was one thing that really got it crumbling.
That was the
sorry, you go.
That was the benefit of these linear chapter based stories from classic Halo, or even 4 and 5, where when you do chapter-based linear campaigns, it gives you more freedom to go to various other places and to explore different biomes. Like in the opening to Halo 2, it's been a while since I played it, but there's that whole like when you're cutting back and forth between what's going on with Chief and then cutting at with Arbiter being tortured and stripped of his rank. It's like stuff like that, you can't do that with Infinite. Like, they try somewhat to have this, like, God of War, like, one-shot camera kind of thing, but they don't really commit to it because they have it cut or transition or slowly fade or whatever to Escharum and the Blade Masters, and it's just like, it's like, either then what was the point of having this one-shot thing where whenever it was like every time you'd get to like a terminal, they would always play that animation where Chief extends his hand out, the weapon goes off, and then the camera like switches positions where it goes from first person, and then it does that thing where it like 360s around, slowly 360s around the two while they're talking, and then it, once the cutscene's over, it'll like slowly rotate and stop into Chief's field of view, and then it goes back to first person. And just when you have that visual presentation the same way over and over again with these cutscenes, it lacks any kind of it really restricts what they're able to do, which to me it's just like baffling if they want to have this new. That's the thing too, is that like this new era for Halo, it feels like with every game that 343 just wants to reset everything, where you have things from 4 that are like forgotten about with 5, and then this whole game just feels like an apology for 5, but it's the third game in the, like, a Reclaimer trilogy or a Reclaimer saga, so there's like no connective tissue between any 3 of these games aside from Cortana, and Cortana is like not even alive by the time you get to Chief's story in this game, which it's really bizarre, like how they go about it.
Yeah, basically, 343 kind of dug themselves in a hole.
Exactly.
They also had this time where they were indecisive, but playing it safe at the same time, which is a recipe for disaster. It's just not good. Yeah. You know, the whole, I feel like, they should take a little bit more time to, like, be experimental, but not necessarily with the story anymore. You know, I feel like they have a lot of things they can go on with the book. They have a lot of things they could have went on about. I mean, we were talking about when Zeta Halo originally was the center point of this new game, that we were going to see Mendicant bias, because Mendicant bias was a rampant AI, and that was why everybody was like, without a doubt, 100%, we would see the Flood in this game. And
right? Oh, that pissed me off so fucking much. Like, because I'm like, and even too, what was it? I could be wrong, right? But Halo Wars 2, right? The Banished actually in the DLC with Halo Wars 2, they're in Zeta Halo, right?
Right.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, what did they discover? This, like, unknown kind of thing, right? For DLC. Oh. And what did they find? The fucking Flood. And they don't do anything with that. And it's supposed to be like they took the story material from Halo Wars.
Right. Well, we're going to get to the to more of the story part in another
I gotcha.
We'll just put a button on that.
Yeah, sure.
So does anybody else want to mention anything about the world building?
I just think, like, they might have done a better job if, again, it just, like, you know, there wasn't the open world, because, again, a lot of games are like, they just put that fluff in, and then it's just like, oh, we gotta expand all this, and I'm like, you know, you're just ruining your story by giving us this stuff, right?
Right.
On the other hand, though, it's like, if we didn't, though, we wouldn't be able to do zippy with the grappling hook.
I think you still could. I think you still could, because to me, like, a better version of this campaign already exists, and it's called Titanfall 2. And in Titanfall 2, you can do all the zip lining, all the grapple hook shit, all the wall running you want. Like, there's a lot of room for parkour, even in those linear story chapter-based levels.
Yeah, because they built the maps.
Yeah,
they built the maps to be open for you to, like, go around in a 360-degree almost fashion.
And I just feel like it was just totally unnecessary for this open world, this interconnected open world approach, because I don't know what it added to the story other than to use it as an excuse to create Halo Infinite as this platform.
That's my biggest thing that pissed me off too. Is that I destroyed all these stop me if I'm going off topic, but I destroyed all these factories and killed all these like evil enemies
Mhm.
and got all these Marines, and yet like the way that Chief does it, or at least how the Thing does it, they don't help me at all. It's not some
Right.
big
Yes.
scale fight war kind of conflict thing. No, they just like no, to me it feels like Chief's just like, nah, I can do this alone. And I'm like, what was the point of saving everybody then?
Yeah, it's so weird that you have these numerous points where all of these Marines, even if they die during a fight, they'll still be alive at the end. Like they'll
Yeah,
wake up magically, and they don't have any presence at all when you're going after the pilot, or when you're storming the silent conservatory at the end. It's like they don't even exist, and yet we know, for example, that it's like they're all here. They're just scattered, but I don't see any reason why they couldn't stop chilling out at any of the fob points and help us in a campaign mission.
Makes no sense. Like, it would have been a great gameplay story change to, like, hey, oh, if you save everybody, you'll have a better, great chance to, like, get through some of the, maybe the final segments of the, you know, part of the game. But no, it's like, oh, Chief has to do it all by himself. And I'm like, it's like, it just pisses me off, because it's like, it's a side mission, yes, but like we just said, you know, it'd be very nice if this actually affected the story.
Yeah.
Like, oh, what was it? Witcher 3. Oh, I do side missions. It actually affects the main story because I help this character and he or she comes in, you know, for hell, like, you know, the Battle of Kaer Morhen, if you did side missions, they actually go in to help you. Like, I don't mean to get so upset about it. It's just like, I spent hours doing that shit, bros. Like, oh.
It doesn't give you much reward other than like you unlock like some of the least interesting weapon coding and armor coding in the multiplayer for doing some of the side quests, like going to the
Valor, yeah.
Yeah, like the Valor, and then doing like the armor lockers, which, by the way, whose idea was it at 343 to name these armor lockers when most of the time you get are just like, they're like nameplates and insignias, and I'm just like,
my bro was like
what?
going off on that, like, he was like, what the hell?
I mean, you know, they could have had armor effects, because that's the most sought after thing,
right?
They could have had several like kill effects, stuff like that could actually, you know, or maybe have decent challenges within it. You know, I would have rather saw really good effects that you get, and then you can against bounty characters. But yeah, that was just a total mistake. I mean, this game did have a lot of undertakings with stuff that it was trying to go for, and it kind of failed on all those aspects of it.
It feels like weirdly incomplete.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, this game does feel very indecisive. I think they tried to put all the forefront into what they were trying to do with the story. And again, I mean, I feel like Halo 5 Guardians really came back to kind of bite this whole game in the ass. Like, it actually affected everything that it had to do, because I consider this Halo 5 Cortana redemption arc. This is basically all that this is in a nutshell, if you really think about it. You know, it's a sore eye, but you know, I guess I'm still excited for the future, because I'm like, okay, now that is over, you can build something new finally. So you know, but yeah, the armor lockers, total waste of time. You know, you could have just done something. I had a feeling, though, near the end where you finally get to the silent auditorium, that maybe you know, a few wasp or pelicans would fly by with the people that you saved to come and do that. Now that would have been a good connection to everything, kind of bringing it back together and being like, the UNSC is here on Zeta Halo. We're here, and we're gonna have this last fight here to reclaim Zeta. But no, they just missed on a really good chance and a really good, like, like a really good moment to be like, this is what you were fighting for at the end.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's just a total waste.
It's just like what you and me discussed, man. Because it's just such a huge waste of freaking time. Then it's like the armor stuff is a waste of time. They could have easily just put all that stuff into the multiplayer that we would have earned progression system, but no, we had to collect it because if we didn't, like, it's basically because see, like I said, this open world is a joke. Because like I said, like, yeah, the armor stuff they could have put in multiplayer. The soldiers, that would have been good, like helping you out and all that, but 9 times it's funny, they even tell you that, like, Marines, they suck against anyone higher than grunts. So I'm like, what's the point then? Not only story now, what's the point of a gameplay thing?
And I mean, another problem with that too is, well, it's good that the Marines do have really good dialogue. Like, a lot of them have great voice lines, but I mean, you're gonna hear them for like when you free them, and that's it. I mean, that's just basically it. I mean, other than seeing them at the fob time to time, and then watching them get crushed by a wasp that you summon,
Yeah.
something like that.
They never fixed that. They never fixed that yet.
Which is another thing that we might want to talk about is the AI. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah,
so
let's
go to that
good.
topic. Let's go to that
how about
topic.
we just move on to the AI now?
Yeah.
Actually, while we're on it.
You go, because I want to hear what you have to say about the AI.
Okay, so in combat, the AI, I was worried. You know, seeing all the glitches and the bugs from time to time when it came to how sometimes the UNSC Marine AIs would be absolutely brain dead in the beta. They would sit there and wait and get hit by a fucking wasp and summon in the fob. But at the same time, when I'm actually fighting and I'm fighting a few banished, the AI, I've never really had a problem with it. I thought it was pretty great, and I mean, I thought some of the moves that they hit on you, especially when they start throwing grunts at you and stuff like that, that's amazing. Okay, I thought that it was amazing. The only problem with the AI that I have is actually only one enemy, and it's the hunters. They are just so bad, especially when you go up to legendary, and I actually have been doing lazo runs with all the skulls, and that's been, the hunters have been the bane of my absolute existence. I do feel like they should be a menacing enemy, but to the point where they're at now, they are the strongest they've ever been, the most annoying, and generally, I gotta say, I think that the AI in this game is somehow very good, but also very bad at the same time. I don't know. I don't think I've ever encountered something like this before with AI. It's just, how can I praise it but hate it? I don't even know.
Yeah, it's very inconsistent across the board.
Yeah, because, like, me personally, it's like, what is it? In my opinion, Marine AI is brain dead, but on the other hand, the enemy AI is actually pretty good, decent. Though, like, of course, I said I got so mad at the hunters that I think I told on stream free. It's like, I don't care. Do with the DLC, story DLC, kill all the hunters. These guys are so fucking annoying to fight.
Right. And another thing that I have to add is, you know, the first thing that you want to do in a firefight is always look at higher ground and the snipers. Those are the main things that you look for. And I have to praise 343 on the jackals, because the jackals are unbelievably smart when you get the higher difficulty. Because not only do, when I shoot at them, they will actually really change position on the high tops that they're at, and they will also take cover from what I've seen. And, you know, if you don't pick them off immediately, you're going to see them vary and throw you off and then hit you really quickly. And I gotta give a little bit of appreciation to that. But I mean, you know, you will see some of the AI, the banished AI, take cover, wait until their shields recharge. They're pretty damn smart. I just wish that the UNSC Marines could get a little bit more respect. I mean, they rarely take cover. They always charge in. They grab a gun, and it's usually like a pistol or some shit. And then they end up getting themselves killed, have more than in the very beginning of the firefight when you finally free them. It's such a wonky thing to have, you know. It makes the humans look like how in any way they got even close to beating the Banished was just pretty crazy.
And then, like, Chief has to watch, like, in dismay as, like, he just freed, and this is my experience, he has to watch 4 Marines that got freed, and they couldn't even stop a suicide grunt. They all died, all 4 of them, and I'm like,
That's pretty funny, though.
I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, it's just a grunt, you guys can fight grunts at least.
They can't even get out of the way when Pilot is calling down a vehicle for you.
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter what vehicle it is. If it's a tank, a flying vehicle, or even a freaking warthog, or like even the little motorcycle thing. Yeah, they won't get out of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been a bit of a journey to see that the AI is still somewhat amazingly stupid, but has takes and bounds when it comes to fighting them.
Yeah.
It's a weird slope that I never thought I'd consider myself in, because if you can get something so good, then, you know, I mean, why can't you get it the other side good? The people that are actually supposed to be helping Master Chief. And I'm not saying that they should be like one-shotting people and this.
Yeah.
At least they should be learning to change positions and knowing when their cover's blown, just like the Banished do. I mean, what's the difference, you know? I don't know. It's something that needs to definitely be worked on.
Yeah. Before we move on to story, which I think will be the final thing we get into, because that's the thing that's definitely going to take. That's going to be like the most in-depth thing. I'm curious. Were you either of you at all like impressed with the visuals or the music? Because I gotta say, I think the game, it looks nice, but I don't know if it happened to either of you, but I had a ton of pop-in when I played it. Like a ton. Like it looked like the old like Xbox presentation 2020 thing that everyone bagged on. Like it was so much pop-in when I played it. Like I even told Clay, I think last week, there was a scene near the beginning when you're in the Pelican and you're flying over Zeta for the first time. And the weapon is like, oh wow, it's so beautiful. And when she said that, there was like a shitload of trees popping in the background, a bunch of textures loading in, and I'm like, okay, like sure. Like I don't think that was the intention of what 343 wanted me to feel. Like, wow, it's like if you were, it's like that scene in the very beginning of Breath of the Wild. It's like when you're standing over the mountain and you see Hyrule for the first time. It's like if everything was like popping in and loading while the title came up. Like I don't think that was the intention, but it was like, yeah, this is still pretty rough when it comes to graphics. And I think it looks fine. It's just I wasn't really that blown away. And I gotta be honest, like aside from the classic themes that play every so often, I was not all that impressed with the music. Like it's serviceable, but I don't think it at all holds a candle to what like Marty O'Donnell did back in the day.
Yeah, I keep thinking like, who did the music for this game?
I think it's a collaboration between the guy who did the score for the Ori games and a few other people, if my memory serves me correctly. Because I know the guy who did the score for Ori, worked on it, but as far as the others, I have no idea who they are.
In terms of the not only graphical issues that I have had several crashes too, even though I did install the patch that they told us to. That the performance was hit or miss time to time. Actually, when I was getting closer to the end of the game, I kept getting crashes constantly, and that killed it for me. In terms of the visuals and stuff like that, again, I also agree that it is probably a hit or miss. When it works, and I think that it can be a little pretty. But then, again, when it does those pop-ins, the texture sometimes doesn't visualize properly, and then I get this real choppy look of what I'm supposed to see is like just regular like grass and leaves, and it can look nasty from time to time. But then when everything kind of comes together, it is pretty. Now, the soundtrack we can definitely talk about, because the soundtrack, it would have better to have been recycled. It honestly, I don't mean to discredit the people that have made this one, but honestly, you know, if you're going from things like the ODST soundtrack, when you go back to 3 and stuff like that, it is just a far cry from what it used to be.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, like, you could have added things where, you know, you were getting right into the middle of combat. I would have loved to hear the Menagerie from Marty O'Donnell. That's an amazing soundtrack, and I think really is like, can be the epitome of just how badass it is to charge into battle against the Banished. But they kind of really missed that mark on the soundtrack. You know, everything is more free flowing, and it's kind of just like, instead of something that should be on and off with you know, maybe how menacing the Banished could be, I feel like this soundtrack just didn't hit the mark on a lot of moments that should be, you know, uplifting is kind of there, and I can feel it. But then times where, you know, you're really like fighting, and you're really like in the heat of battle and stuff like that, it just sound like, and I don't want to sound like, make this sound like cringy, but like, it didn't sound like epic enough, you know? It was no epicness to it, in my opinion.
The one thing that pissed me off personally about the music is that, like, I'll say like this: when I'm traversing in the game with the grappling hook, it's like, I feel like there should be music. I don't get music, and I'm like, come on, man! Like, it's you're making it, because like, sometimes I do get it, and then it's nice, right? But like, when I don't get any music when I'm traversing through with the grappling hook, I'm like, come on! Like, you're making this boring now.
It's a lot of like atmospheric music, but very little tune.
Right. That's exactly what I mean by that. Is that, you know, they have a decent amount of atmospheric music, but it's also just not anything that is supposed to mean anything, you know, in there. Like, I just feel like that they could have had decent chances to put a beautiful track on here and like have us going, oh my god, like, I'm kicking some ass right now, and just this rain of either like violins or like, you know, or you know, any type of just raw like power to an orchestra like they usually do have. I mean, and I gotta admit, like, Halo 5 actually has got a better soundtrack than this one, and I would agree with that.
That is bad. It's like, you know, so like, it's
because we've always, and then another thing that they do is, the only time that I'm like, okay, this is badass, it's just a recycle of Warthog Run again. Like, come on, man. I mean, I love Warthog Run, and I mean, everyone in the fan base does. Don't get me wrong, but like, if that's your only thing and you don't add anything new to it other than just a fresh coat of paint on Warthog Run, then what are you doing here? Like, what?
You know? It's like, I feel you. I mean,
that's a shame.
It's a really stark, like, it really like reminds you the difference between the two sets of composers when they bring up an old track, and it's like, oh wow, like, this is some good stuff. Like, when there's like specific moments when you go to both in, I think the only time I can really remember that they use the score like for any like significant length of time is just the final push onto Escherum's fortress at the end. And then there's certain moments where you can go to like certain parts of the map and stand, and you get like a bit of scenery porn, and they play like bits of the main theme. They do that, but then everything else, it's like stuff that you'd listen to while you were studying for a test or something. Like, it's a lot of like background noise, that's like, and I don't mind like an atmospheric soundtrack, but like Silent Hill, like a lot of the music in that I don't think has any like particularly noteworthy tune per se, and I don't think that's what it's going for in most parts, because it's meant to convey like a very like crushing, foreboding atmosphere. But in something like Halo, that's meant to be like exciting and get your blood pumping, it's just it's the soundtrack, just the original stuff, I think is just very weak in that regard.
I know, it's like, the one thing that pissed me off is like, for some reason, and I know it's a very weird comparison, I almost would put Chief in as like the Superman of the sci-fi kind of series thing, whatever. Because, or at least like in him with Tandem and in with his music, because his music gives like a very hopeful-esque vibe to it. I didn't get none of that with Halo Infinite. They're like, you get this hopeful, action-y vibe sometimes when Chief is like, and sometimes, if I remember right, in the trilogy, when he's out saving Marines' butts, that theme pops in your head with the hopeful, action-y vibe that, again, he's kicking ass, taking names, but he's also inspiring people that are literally watching him do it. So, but like, when I see an Infinite, it's like, nope, I saved Marine number 1552, and it's like, nope, no hopeful music, no nothing, just doing the same old thing over and over again.
Yeah,
I agree. And one last point I'd like to say is
sure.
I feel like the other composers who originally were on the games before, maybe not Halo 5 either, but I feel like they were so in tune with what the world was and what it sounded like that, you know, you really could tell that you were going to get a good soundtrack. Halo Reach, ODST, you know, the ones before it, those ones, also amazing soundtracks. A lot of people do come to this game to hear a good soundtrack, and I feel like that's another disservice that you do, is just recycle a good one. Doesn't even sound decent, it just sounds like a basic Warthog Run cover. I mean, and yeah, I just feel like, you know, you gotta be more into this world than that, you know? I mean, because there's history here, and you can hear it through the music. You can't hear it in Infinite. You really can't.
So I think the story and the writing are what I think are the biggest problems with this game. Is that I think I simply just, and I don't want to sound like mean or anything,
or Mr. Cynical, as we like to call ourselves.
Yeah, I just don't think 343 are a good studio when it comes to writing or character work. I think their strengths are gameplay in most respects, but they've always been very lousy writers, and I think that continues with Infinite. I think the reason that it's so... I think the open world part plays its role in creating a very wonky narrative, because it doesn't allow for a lot of variety in the level design, it doesn't allow for a lot of variety in the environments, it doesn't allow for a lot of room for these characters to breathe. And I'll give an example, and since we're in spoiler territory, since this is an open world platform a la Destiny, now that's what Halo is, basically. It's what Infinite is, even though it's supposed to be the ending to this new trilogy. It's like the beginning of another thing now. It's this Destiny 10-year plan where they're like, oh, we're just going to keep adding DLC to it. So the whole thing with the pilot having this family in the beginning, I think that's meant to get players on board with this character, to be more sympathetic to him, to where it's like, oh, he has a family. That way, I means I care about him. I want to see him escape from Zeta Halo and beat the Banished and win and escape with Master Chief. But all I can think of in the back of my head when I saw that was, they have to give him some kind of narrative justification to have him stick around for the next 10 years on Zeta Halo. So to me, when it's revealed that his family is, I don't know if his family is dead or he is, I don't know if he's just estranged from them or something. But to me, that was never surprising, because I figured, yeah, they have to give him a reason to stick around. So he can't leave, because he's going to be part of the trio now. And it's just the same with all these other people that are here, like Master Chief, like Weapon. They can't escape. So there's no tension for me to go, oh, well, when are they going to leave and be able to go home again and be reunited with everyone?
Yeah,
Well, they
like
can't. They can't.
yeah, it's like it's literally when what is it when he's looking for if my bro can help me out. What part were they looking for the ship to leave? What was it again?
The slip space drive.
Yeah, they needed a slip space drive, and there was nothing, so they literally could not leave. So
Okay, so I do agree that 343's greatest strength is most definitely the gameplay. I would say that the movement system they have captured perfectly in any Halo game. I mean, and this is the only good thing I can ever say about Halo 5 is the movement system was the best movement system in almost one of the best movement systems in gaming history, and that's a big stretch, but
yeah, I got you. I
agree
got you.
once you see how they can move and stuff like that when professional
Yeah.
people can move. But yeah, the writing in this, and this is one thing I do say about why this game does need to be played is the potential for after, and that's why I kind of say that you still kind of would like to play this game if you're in Halo, because not only the multiplayer, but yes, the writing is bad. I personally think that even though my love for, or my excitement for Escharum, because I thought Escharum was going to be a decent villain, and Harbinger, I like them enough to where I could say they are definitely not the worst Halo antagonist that we have ever seen.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Personally,
No, not at all.
My favorite antagonist might have been the Didact, just because of how long he's been hyped up, and in the books he's been hyped up tremendously. And that might just be a little biased because I've read the books and I've just had this moment of, oh my god, we finally get to see him in game. And I know a lot of people didn't like the Didact, but personally that was why I was so excited for him. But yeah, Escharum was definitely a disappointment, especially at the beginning. You're kind of undercutting him right from the get-go because we see Atriox, and Atriox whoops Master Chief's ass immediately. And then this is why this is so confusing with 343, because they don't know who they really want the big baddie to be, because at the very end that we find out he's still alive and he releases the Endless, which is the bigger baddie that we all wanted. Another variation of the Flood that we all wanted to see at the end. They hype up this game. This game is just a precursor to what really we kind of wanted Halo Infinite to be.
Yeah.
And it's basically, I was going to say real quick, it reminds me, and I swear this is the truth, it's like, it reminds me of fucking Dune, where it's like, oh, we're not going to make a standalone movie, we're just going to set up everything for the part 2, and I'm like, bro, you can't do that, because when you make a movie to set up another movie, you're basically shooting it behind its back and killing it, and I'm like, and no one's really going to enjoy it for, what it is by itself,
Right. And another huge thing that I wanted to touch about was the so many plot holes in this game.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
There is so many that wanted to be desired. So many things that needed context. They left so many little big holes in the ground about, well, what happened to the Didact? Because he didn't die. We know he didn't die. There's no way that he died. The things that we thought Infinite was going to answer for us, but instead they just left bigger holes in the ground, especially with Cortana. Okay, we get Cortana was bad in Halo 5 Guardians, and even though Halo 3, I don't know what it would be.
It's fine.
343 hasn't necessarily apologized for what they kind of did. Instead, they are just trying to clean their hands of it and say, okay, Cortana did all these bad things. We're never going to get a real explanation genuinely as to why. She just had a change of heart other than rampancy. And then she gets put here on Zeta, and she has those last minutes, well, let me just make a copy of myself. I can only think of it for a few milliseconds. This will be the thing that'll undo all my wrongs, even though I just basically pissed off Atriox by killing his home planet, and got all these AIs to destroy oh my god, I forgot the station that had 43 Spartans in it.
Yeah.
did all that just to be like, you know what? Maybe I should just make the weapon and, you know, just have a new Cortana and be done with it. And, you know, hopefully this one doesn't get rampancy either. It's just a whole disgusting circle of life shit that we had to see in this. And I just hated it. Like, why did you just make Cortana go rampant? If you would have just changed that in the course of time, if we could just get a time machine, go back, and just tell 343, don't make Cortana a bad guy, we could have avoided everything that happened, you know?
That was the weirdest part of the campaign, was like, okay, so you guys were scraping Guardians, that's fine, I don't mind that. But then they do this 180 where it's like, oh, you know the shit that Cortana did? Yeah, we're gonna show you it. And I'm like, what did you guys just say you were gonna do? And it's like, scrape it? It's like, no, you just showed me that Cortana's being a bitch. You know?
Yeah.
Like,
and
what the fuck?
He's like, Chief basically is wrestling with feeling sympathy towards a fucking genocidal maniac. And I'm like, no, I don't. So I think you hit the nail on the head by bringing up the Didact and Evil Cortana. 343, they are absolutely terrible at committing to a villain. Like, they are just terrible at committing to it. Not only committing to it, but developing it, because you have the Didact in 4, then you have Evil Cortana in 5, and Evil Cortana's arc is just completely wrapped up while Chief is floating in space, and now you have this new thing, the Banished, which are basically just the Covenant with another name. And not only do you have the Banished now, you have Atriox in Halo Wars 2, but then they get rid of him off screen after Halo Wars 2 built him up, and the fight at the beginning of Infinite, he's gone, so now we have Escharum, but then Escharum is barely given all that much to do beyond monologue every 5 minutes he shows up.
See, yeah, that's the thing that, like, I would have, like, what is it? Okay, I thought, like, I could give him some slack, but then, now that you say that, I realized for a second, is like, it's weird that he's not more of a physical presence, and he literally just, like, he has this big fucking 4K widescreen TV monologue into you.
Let Razor keep going.
That's the problem. That's exactly the problem with this one-shot camera open world approach kind of thing, is that it gives them very little freedom to explore outside of what Chief and the weapon and the pilot are going through. And, like, you'll have those moments where, again, they don't even fully commit to the one-shot thing like God of War and Hellblade do, but it doesn't even make any sense why they do that other than to, like, show off, be like, look how artsy we are, look at us, we're doing the one-shot camera as well. But there's no reason for it, because it just severely limits how they can tell this story, which to me is like really frustrating.
And to piggyback off of what you said, that in a story, you can make that work for stuff like God of War, because you're in their world and there's a million moving parts to that story, but it is explained in the other Halo games what's exactly going on. It's not like we're going in there absolutely, blind. But now that you're trying to spin this in Infinite, it just doesn't work like it would with other games, because you haven't set that up like that.
Yeah.
But like we come in knowing generally what's about to happen and what's going to happen and who's the moving pieces in the puzzle board. But now that we don't know, it doesn't make any sense now, and especially the plot holes that are not ever going to be answered. Why try to do that now? Why try to make it this story of the Three Musketeers here? Like, it's just not.
Yeah. And with, again, like the villain thing, like, once all the villains are taken care of, all the Spartan killer, or I assume the Spartan killers are taken care of. You have Escherum's dead, Blade Master's dead, so now they have to bring in, again, basically the Flood 2.0, and they have to bring in the Harbinger at the very end. And I forgot the Harbinger was even there about like halfway through the game. Like she has cutscenes every so often, but I'm like, why isn't Escharum the final fight? Why is this Harbinger character that I don't give two craps about? She's here, and all she really does is just go, I'm evil, but if you want to know my story and what I'm all about, please look forward to the future DLC. And then she wakes up the new Flood, and then for you probably know this better than I do, and Clay, but like, did I hear that correctly? Where they're bringing up time travel now into this?
Basically.
Oh my god.
There's
It never works.
Yeah, there's so with these drives and stuff like that, basically, you know, like in the very beginning when Master Chief was teleporting out, that he did this thing where it's kind of like a rift where they will have they can be gone for like days and stuff like that. It's ridiculous. It's such a stupid thing.
Yeah.
And this I can't even I don't even want to like try to get into like time, because it just wouldn't work for a Halo game. It's just a total thing.
Again, it's always funny because like it's always funny with these sci-fi stuff, because at least to me personally, unless you make it very, very specific, like Doctor Who, for example, it's like, okay, that's fine because that's its main concept.
Right.
But for Halo, it's like, really, like time travel, like that's just ridiculous at this point. And granted, we fought like aliens of all types with technology that's like incredibly futuristic and all that, but time travel, nah, it just not working, buddy.
Yeah, I just when I heard, because I already wasn't really on board with where they were gonna go with the story, like, because I don't, my thing, and Clay knows this very well, my whole thing with these like platform games is that if I don't like what they offer me in the 1.0, I'm not going to care about what comes after. And that's unfortunately, like, in my personal opinion, that's just where I am with Infinite, where like I'm basically like done with Infinite, and I just really don't have much desire to see where this goes beyond this 1.0 thing, where it feels like the prologue to the fight that we should have gotten as the main story. Like it's but then they have the thing where Chief is dropped like in the middle of these like big events already have happened, and we're all confused, and I that could work, but I feel like the execution was just very clumsy, because you have all this stuff with Atriox that happens off screen, you have Cortana going on her like genocidal maniac trip off screen, all the stuff with the pilot off screen, and it's just, and then by the time you're told, oh, here's what's going on, I'm left confused as to like what, like, am I supposed to feel sympathy or believe that Cortana has this change of heart? Like, she's willing to like blow up entire planets, but it's like as soon as Master Chief gets involved or something, then she has some kind of, she goes, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't be this terrible villain. And I'm like, you think? Like,
right. And another thing that I wanted to add to that was, you know, they do a massive disservice to why he should even care at all, because Master Chief does actually talk about a time he went back to Earth and was fighting Cortana's forces, and the one thing that everybody was just trying to do was not even win, was just survive.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what is this thing? Like, what is this thing with Chief? I get this massive attachment that he has with Cortana, where he thinks that, oh, I could have reasoned with her and everything like that. I get it, because they've been in this since the very beginning, and I know that it's a rough thing that Master Chief has to go through after thinking for so long about somebody like that. But at the same time, it's like, we also have kind of not experienced barely anything, and from what we have already experienced, we should just immediately kill any idea of Cortana being a person that can be redeemed or anything like that. It is like, if Cortana was going to be bad, And now that you have already said that Cortana's going to be bad, you have to commit to it. You have to just let her die like a martyr to her own belief at that point. Because having her end up being, oh, well, I can do this, I can make another copy of myself that's good, it's just such a shitty cop-out for what should have been. I mean, honestly, and I hated Cortana as evil. But realistically, if they were going to do this, they had to commit to this, because I would have rather been on Earth fighting Cortana than kind of the messy thing that they've done. The only reason why I say that you should kind of play this game is maybe down the line when they actually do some DLC that's going to flesh out a new beginning, then maybe I would say touch this game. But I say, and me, I'm just a huge Halo fan, so I'm just going to say play it regardless, but that's just me being unbelievably biased.
I mean, yeah, it's like,
that's fair.
If you got Game Pass too, it's like, well, for us, right? Basically, we played this game for free, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, so it's like, hey, if you got Game Pass, go for it. Go for it.
I'll play the multiplayer though. Multiplayer's
kind of multiplayer is good.
When you're not thinking about progression, if you can close out your heart to the progression system, play the multiplayer.
Yeah, if you like the beat for beat gameplay of the multiplayer and you don't care about the progression system, then yeah, you'll love the multiplayer. I think like the biggest one that I was like, honestly, I wish they would have kept was just Chief destroying the weapon. Like, wouldn't it have been a great twist? And she just died and Chief was just like, because, like, to me, he might be going through that, you know, post-Cortana, post-traumatic stress disorder, and he just doesn't want to see this weapon becoming,
I think Master Chief has Stockholm Syndrome. I think we can all basically do the self-diagnosis and say that Chief 100% has Stockholm Syndrome. I mean, other than fighting her constantly, but, like, the one time he agrees to destroy her, I thought, if we want to touch characters real quick, I think the weapon was okay, as much as we had gripes in the very beginning.
Yeah, we were dogging on her.
They ended up kind of doing okay with her, even though I thought, oh, this. But then, especially when he was like, you know, like, destroy her, do it to save this, and then she gets all mopey about it, and then I'm like, oh my god. And then when they finally explain, oh, I'm her, I'm like, isn't it obvious that you're her? Like, how did you not know that you were Cortana? I didn't get that. I didn't get that. That's just shitty story writing for 343. But man, get better writers, 3-4. Like, come on, man, you got the budget, you know?
What I don't understand personally, it might just be me. What I don't understand is, like, she wanted to be deleted, right? So, like, why did she get all basically offended when Chief actually tried to do it? Okay, yes, it was behind her back. He was basically trying to backstab her, but I'm like, that was your purpose. And assuming that she was, like, what is it, almost becoming, what's the term? I guess not sentient. She's already sentient.
Yeah.
I guess independent, that's the term.
Yeah.
She didn't want to follow orders. And in a sense, I feel like Chief was actually kind of, like, interested or almost proud of her, even though he barely kind of knew her. It's like, oh, because you're just like Cortana, because you don't follow orders sometimes. I mean, he follows orders all the time, but that was a thing connected between her and Cortana. She kind of did her own thing.
Right.
And that's what Chief was interested in.
You know, the thing is, too, the part where, you know, she's like, oh, you know, she was kind of supporting the idea of the ring being fully finished. And then me, who's having PTSD as well, is like, oh shit, she's like kind of thinking for herself, not listening to directives. I'm like, okay, here we go, Cortana 2.0. So when Master Chief said red flag, which is one of the passcodes for her deletion, I was like, okay, 343 is about to actually do something good with this story. Let's go. And then she disobeys completely, stops herself from being deleted. I'm like, Master Chief, I'm like, you gotta kill her. You know, like, you just gotta kill her, because she's already not listening. Imagine 7 years down the line when she actually is rampant. Come on. Like, it's gonna be a mess. And it's something that 343 is gonna have to either explain or have her deleted. It's just, like, it's a mess.
It's gonna be Halo Infinite Guardians. This time, Cortana's clone. You gotta fight again. If they do that, I'm like, you guys are so dumb.
Yeah,
like,
Halo expensive for giving us all your money.
I don't think she's worthy. I don't think the weapon is worthy of the Cortana name either. Like, I think just isolated as her own separate character, I don't find her all that interesting. I don't think she has the personality of Cortana. I don't think, and all her like incessant little like quips that she has just bug the shit out of me after a while. Like Cortana made sarcastic remarks in the OG trilogy, but like, you know, they fit the situation. But when you have her the weapon saying shit when you're fighting any of the not guilty Sparks, you have like fighting those guys, and then she's like, "Oh, he brought friends. He brought friends." And like when you have to repeat that fight multiple times and you get to that phase of the fight and you have her repeat that same quip over and over again, I just want to be done with her. I want her to get deleted. I don't like her.
Yeah, that was definitely the thing where I'm like, bitch, do you want to get deleted again? Or do you want to try to be, do you want Chief to delete you, like, but for real this time?
Yeah, the mini storylines that they had going for this too, it's just a mess. It's just a whole jumbled mess that I somehow fall into every time. You know, I just think that if you were to just have this, I mean, I don't know where to go from here. You know, I mean, when they fight the Endless, I like the idea or the possibility of Master Chief doing most of this alone, but listening to lone UNSC radio calls for help or something like that. I could have been like, this is a solo arc that I would have been 100% down for. I feel like sometimes the whole, you know, 343 likes to jump on ideas that seem cool in the very beginning. Like, okay, like, you know, with like games that came out like The Last of Us to have like this buddy story and stuff like that. They thought that they were the beginning of that idea, because with Master Chief and Cortana being like this, as long as, you know, no matter what happens, they're always together, that sort of thing. It doesn't work again when you have like Esparza and characters like that, where, you know, they weren't supposed to, like, the weapon wasn't supposed to be even a thing after Cortana got deleted. It's just like, what is this? What are we doing here? You know?
Yeah.
It's a mess that 343 has to basically correct. And you know what? I also want to admit that the DLC, they didn't announce it yet, but we have a strong feeling that the second one will not actually be Master Chief that we play. It's actually Spartan Locke that we will play, because basically in one of the toy lines and also in the game, one of the Spartan killers, Tremorous, has Spartan Locke's helmet on his shoulder pad. So we have to
that's
find out
right.
Yeah, but I'll be frank too, real quick. Can I just say that once again, that 343 introduces, to me personally, a group of people that are supposed to be important, supposed to be like, oh, we got you now, we're gonna get you, Chief, and then it's like, nope, I'm just gonna one-shot you guys. You guys are pathetic. And I'm like, come on, 343, give us a group that you introduced that I actually care about. These guys were meant to apparently trained to take out Master Chief, the Master Chief, and yet I basically handled them like soft dough, you know?
The funny thing too that I'll say is that you called it, Clay, unintentionally. You called it.
Which one?
You were absolutely right about they never like there's like the heavy implication that this happens at the end of Infinite, but the weapon, you said that I hope they don't do something stupid like the weapon calling herself Cortana at the end. And that's exactly what they did.
Oh my god, yeah. I was like, actually, I think I was speechless with that, and I'm like, I almost was about to say in my mind is like, I had a good time a bit with the finale, but then I was like, if she names herself Cortana, I'm like, I'm done with this game.
Yeah, no, you know what was funny was I was laughing basically for a good 10 minutes about that, because I'm just like, okay, well, so long as someone tries to do one little right thing after committing like a mass genocide, I guess they can name themselves after, you know,
Right? Like, oh
Yeah.
my god.
I mean, I guess that's the point that we're going for. I guess because Cortana must still be good, right? I mean, like,
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
They're so desperate at hitting that, like,
Soft
that
reboot.
well, soft, not only that, but like the soft reboot. That's why I said it's like the usual problems with 343 storytelling, except behind this wallpaper of like nostalgia. It's like member berries, regardless of like the consequence, like the implications of what 343 like the story is going for. They want to just like have hit players with that nostalgic combat evolved feel, just to try to like distract them from the usual weak writing and the weak storytelling that they always do. Like the whole thing of Chief, you know, having to come to terms with Cortana at the end and saying, like, Cortana recording that goodbye message and saying about how, like, oh well, now I've created this copy of myself and you'll have her now. Oh, goodbye. I'm so sorry I was bad. I'm so sorry I wiped out Australia and I wiped out Atriox's planet. Oh, I'm sorry. Goodbye.
So yeah, and I'm basically
like, no.
and it's also, I'm sorry I wiped out like a whole station of your brothers and sisters in arms.
Just because they wouldn't bend the knee, she's just like, okay, goodbye, and just blows up the whole ship. But it's this whole like, we want to give people that feeling of the relationship between Cortana and Chief. We want to give people that like, oh, like that again, that nostalgic, like, it's like a morphine shot where like it's like, this is bad, but then 343 comes in with that morphine and it's like, oh, here's the happy good feelings. And it's like, oh, okay. And it's like to distract you from how stupid all this other stuff is.
That's the thing, yeah. It's just like, if Chief was sensible, there would have been some good dialogue about, like, it's like, you're trying to say all this, but you understand that I still hate you, and you have to know why I did what I did, right? And even though, again, like what my bro said, he has fucking Stockholm syndrome, and he can't admit that he... Yeah, it's like, okay, I don't mind if he admits that he is addicted or likes Cortana, you know, that's the thing. I understand that, but it'd be nice if he had to man up and, you know, character development actually understood he had to let her go. But then, you know, this is why I keep saying personally that Chief should have just been by himself, you know, like, maybe, I don't know, get some automatic AI thing, whatever, to help him, but that's it, but not like a personality AI.
Automatic therapy.
Yeah. Just get like fucking,
Chief needs to spend like a year in isolation of therapy.
Yeah.
My God, what they did to that poor man. Oh my God.
But it's just, I just don't believe that Master Chief would open up this much to the weapon. Oh, even if it's like a direct copy of Cortana, if they never met, it's just, to me, they never sold me on this growing relationship between these two. That's why beyond like the gameplay similarities, I feel like we already have a version of this story that's much better with Titanfall 2, where we have the inexperienced, not like inexperienced pilot, but we have like the badass super pilot, super soldier who is developing this new friendship, this new relationship with this AI. In the case of Titanfall 2, it's Jack and BT. But in like that game, because the writing is so strong, it's like you believe the growing bond between these two. And I never believed it with the weapon and Master Chief. To me, it just felt really hollow.
Sorry, you go.
I said I kind of feel like with the big difference in the writing, which with Respawn Entertainment's Titanfall 2, right? It's Respawn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where they kind of were in the underworks to make a very good story, and some people wouldn't. This is one of those stories that catches you off guard for how good it is, you know. And I have the same feeling with kind of like Spec Ops: The Line in a sense, because I really like Spec Ops.
Oh yeah, that was the one.
I had that feeling that where, you know, the writers were in their own space and they kind of understood that, you know, even though the soldier's been through so much, that they have this mech that, you know, would do anything for him, you know, and for the mission itself. And that's what I loved about this. You can't even possibly get the same vibes with 343s, because I think they just automatically know that they're gonna have a good story, but they don't have a good story, and that's what I think they got to take themselves off that pedestal and come back to the groundworks from the original Halos that they had. You know, it was just a group that just believed in a story and a world, you know, where it was just a soldier and his AI, but now it can't be that anymore. I feel like they can't capture those vibes anymore because they're now just nostalgia. And there's a point in you know, a big massive video game lines where they got to move past the nostalgia. Like God of War had to move past it in a sense, even though they had little remnants
references,
of it,
yeah,
references,
heavy references,
yeah, the heavy references that, you know, were still kind of integral to the story and about what, you know, Kratos himself has to go through, but they still have to move past it and make something new, and that's where Infinite really just keeps struggling with every time, because it's always the remembering what was in the past game. All of it, it's just bullshit.
Yeah, 343 will forever. That's 343 will forever be in the shadow of Bungie. There's that's exactly. It's like a parasite. This series to them is like a parasite that they're attached to, or that they're the parasite is attached to them. And I've always thought it was a bad idea for them to make a new studio to just work on Halo. Like, it's because I can only imagine, like, how, because like a lot of, whenever new games are coming out in storied franchises, you'll always have the people on the development team say, oh, well, we love this franchise, we love working on it, we love exploring this world.
It's like blah blah blah.
Yeah, and it's like whenever a new Star Wars game comes out, you have all the people, the people on the team like, oh, we love Star Wars, we have such respect for Star Wars, we saw it when we were in theaters when we were kids, we did all this, we did all that, and yeah, I don't like it. It always comes across as so like disingenuous and fake, and that's how
corporate shit.
Yeah, the corporate shit, and that's how I feel about 343 with Halo, where I never ever, beyond like surface level nostalgic stuff, I've never ever gotten a reference for Halo or even an understanding of what makes Halo tick from 343. No matter who they've brought in, I've never ever gotten that sense from any of their mainline games, that they understand what makes those old games so good.
Right, and it was, and the thing was about it that I love about Halo that I can say is lost to time is consistency, and that is the biggest problem with Halo games now, is consistency, because when Halo 1 comes involved,
it's like what is it?
We had this big narrative going on, this bigger picture always at the forefront, but now it's just gone. It's like every single antagonist is going to be washed by some other antagonist.
Yep.
And some other little thing off camera or whatever. It's disgusting. It's just really disgusting.
Yeah, the best comparison I think I said to myself was like, it's like 343 is trying to fight like Bungie, who's got all their chess pieces in the correct order, while everything is in their hands with their chess pieces. It's all fucking random. It's not all in the right spots, and they expect to do a move, right? And then like Bungie be like, hey, you can't do that, and they'd be like, I don't care, I'm doing it like this, you know? And it's ridiculous. You can't do that.
How is it that, you know, 343 has tried several things? They wanted to try their own variation of ODST and making Guardians, which they basically said Reach and ODST were their big inspirations to make
quote unquote
that wasn't necessarily all about Chief and this, but then they just were like, no, like, you just fucked it up so bad. I would have been totally open to like a new experience like Reach or ODST, but now it's like, I don't think I could ever like be open to the idea, especially with these writers doing it. It's just not good to me.
Yeah.
Just stick to multiplayer. That's what you're good at. Have a nice life.
Yeah.
I let the books write it, you know?
I'm actually now. That'll be kind of like, yeah, I was gonna say like, or at least my final parting about the story, whatever, is like this. Now that like we kind of got actually our full open opinions about it, I'm now kind of scared to see how 343 might possibly fuck up the Flood now. And I'm like, I hate to say they're probably gonna fuck it up, but on the one hand, it's like that's honestly at this point now that's the only reason I care about playing more of Halo Infinite's campaign is that we get more of the Flood, even though 343 is just like, we're gonna downplay them, and I'm like, don't fucking downplay the Flood, man. They're still very dangerous. They're still very dangerous.
Yeah. You know what a problem about that is though, is that if you go to like other Halo or YouTubers like Same Token and stuff like that, they made this game seem so much more exciting, and they gave 343 a way to make this story good and show that they did their homework with Halo. They didn't do it. Like it's just so funny to me how like
a fan could do like a better story.
Explain how you can make this a good story. The books give you these people that you could go to, like we kept talking about Mendicant bias. There's no way. Like the Halo writers, they know what they're doing. You know, they'll get Mendicant bias in this because, you know, like the rampant AI, talk to the Primordial about the Flood. I'm like, you know, they got this. Like, we're going to get the Halo story we've always wanted, especially at the Zeta Halo. No, they do something that's totally different. You know, it's just, yeah, get the writers out, get the book writers to become the writers so that we can actually get a good story going finally.
I think for me, the obvious comparison with this Reclaimer trilogy is the Star Wars sequel trilogy, because it's like each one of those movies has a totally different vision, and I don't mean that as a compliment. I mean that as like there is zero connective tissue to there's zero consistency across that any of those three movies, because you have the first one, which it's like Halo 4 and Rise of Skywalker, or sorry, what the fuck is the first? Force Awakens.
Force Awakens, yeah.
So you'll have like the new team come in and try to feel out the franchise and kind of do their own thing with it a little bit. Like Halo 4 more than Force Awakens, because Force Awakens is basically like A New Hope 2.0.
Yeah, exactly.
Then you get to the middle entry where in Star Wars, it's The Last Jedi, with Rian Johnson basically like throwing everything that was before it into the dumpster to do something else. And then with Halo 5, you have baffling shit like Master Chief barely being a part of the story. You have evil Cortana, just shit that is just like, what? And then in this new one, like Rise of Skywalker and Halo Infinite, they're both, not only are they both apologies for the past entry, they are trying to wipe the slate clean by bringing in the old familiar things that people know. It's like they realized that their own experimentation with the series sucked, so now they want to bring in the safest, blandest thing possible to try to salvage it. And I don't think it worked with Rise of Skywalker, at least for the masses, because a lot of people saw right through that shit. But it's weird to me how many people I've read are like praising Infinite as like this like glorious return to form. And yeah, I think it's definitely better than 4 and 5, like no question on my mind. But like on its own terms, no, I don't think it's a return to form at all. Because to me, being a return to form would be reaching the heights of like 2, 3, Reach. Even Combat Evolved, which I think is the weakest of the original 3, but I like it quite a bit. I don't think this game hits the weakest moments of the original trilogy.
Saying a Halo game nowadays being returned to form is like me saying I'm built like The Rock. It's just not possible.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, instead of returning to form, you can actually, for once, kind of, you know, be consistent with who you're going to have as an antagonist now, and finally do some justice for the ones that you kind of left in the shadow, because all the last remnant we've ever had of the Didact, who was a villain that was really, really something to behold. He was one of the last Forerunner gods. You just have him hit with a grenade and falling off an energy bridge, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's a shame. It's a shame that, like, some of the tools that 343 has to their disposal, they just don't use them. It's kind of it's kind of just a shame, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
It's hard to say when we're gonna see a Halo story come back and be like, you know, this can go back up with the lineup of Bungie games that are just amazing, you know, and we could just say that, you know, we can always come back to this game and just be like, let's have a little journey that we used to have with the other Halo. It's gonna be a rare one rare thing that I hope to see before you know, my life goes out, you know. So I don't know, we'll see what happens, but for now we're still searching.
It's just unfortunate that they've now committed to like the Destiny thing with Halo Infinite, where they
Right.
have to keep supporting it. Not only do they have to keep supporting the multiplayer, which that makes sense to me, them supporting the multiplayer long term, but for them to now not only tie themselves to that, but to also tie themselves to committing to improving and expanding upon the single player. It's like, okay, you've basically like locked yourself into this world for the next like 5-6 years. I don't think it would be like a 10-year thing, and I only say 10 years because that's like the buzzword that everybody with a live service says, where they're like, oh, we've got a 10-year plan for this, like what they said with
Right.
Anthem, and look how that turned out. But
Yeah.
it's such a shame, because I think the best thing for 343 would be to just make a new IP, but they can't because Microsoft doesn't want to let go of Halo.
Right. I mean, I just feel like Microsoft should have really heeded what they said a long time ago, that when Bungie decides that they might want to cut ties with the franchise, that either we have to let it die, or we have to make sure that most of the creative directors and everybody that of what made Halo so amazing stay, and they couldn't do it. So at that point, they should have either given the full creative rights to just Bungie alone, or just let it go, you know. And,
Yeah.
and this is the basically what has just transpired is just a big shell of what it used to be, and it's kind of sad. That's
Yeah. Final thoughts before we wrap up, because this was I really enjoyed this conversation.
Let's see. If I said my piece real quick, it's
Okay.
like I thought it was okay, solid, but aside from the gameplay, now I'm like, sheesh, I didn't realize how fucked up the story is. Not actually like it is fucked up as in like, man, this shit sucks. Like,
It's fucked up in small ways. It's like, it's not broken in any kind of like, it's not like Final Fantasy 15 where it's just like this outward disaster, or it's like, this is just a mess.
It's a plot disaster.
Yeah, it's like it's core like through line is competently told, because it's basically just all it is. There's an arc, like it's there. I don't think it's well written, but the arc is there, where it's Chief, I guess, forgiving himself for the mistakes that he made with not stopping Cortana or something. Like there is some kind of arc there, but as shallow as I think it is there. I just think there are all these like elements around it that are just too deeply flawed to ignore. And I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but I'm just amazed that a lot of like mainstream reviews are just kind of like giving it a pass, and then they're like, oh, here's your 9 out of 10, here's your 8 out of 10, and I'm like, huh? Like, what the fuck? What are you talking about?
Yeah, like,
and this is, I just don't. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it's just like, look, it's like, and again, you know, Twitter how they are, but again, I kept saying like, you guys are nuts if you think this is a 10. Funny enough, you, Razor, you said I was not saying I was crazy, whatever, but you said like you put it at 7.5, and I'm like, yeah, it's just the open world, the story. It wasn't really that impressive to me, you know. I'm not gonna lie, I almost feel like giving this game a 5.5.
That's where I would give it like a 5 or a 5.5.
Yeah,
I think
man,
that 0.5 would come from the grapple hook.
I don't care. People are gonna hate us for this, but I don't care. Like, look, this is just our opinions. You don't have to like it.
Right.
Yeah.
I actually would just alone. I feel like my score right now is relatively low. I think like at the time I'd give it like a 5.5. 5.5.
Okay.
Because and this is why I'm still undecided if I should lower it even more, because I feel like there's a small little lining that if they just do something else with this story with DLC. I mean, I guess we could just rate the DLC differently, but I guess for right now it would be a 5.5. But I feel like that could kind of change if they have an idea of what they wanted to do right now and they couldn't get it to form. But I mean, yeah, for what it is worth, 5.5 right now is the definite deserved grade for this. I mean, I still say that this is not a cohesive story, but it is a story I get through, and I still, even though I have said so much bad things about it, I did kind of enjoy this game. I mean, and the story, because I've seen a lot worse. I mean, I've seen a lot worse games this year. So, you know, I mean, it's nothing, not a riveting story like It Takes Two, but definitely a story that I can at least tolerate for one playthrough and kind of say, okay, well, I hope they do better next game.
Yeah,
I hope there is a next game.
Jumping off It Takes Two, the question that I've been asked by other people when I told them like, oh, I beat Halo Infinite, is that would I play this again with a friend when they add in co-op later on? And my answer to that question is no. And the reason for that is that I think there are better co-op experiences out there than this.
I mean, it's just basically, to me, especially, like, you know, what is it? If I'm going to play, it's basically the same experience, but the combat is going to be easier because you have a friend. That's it. Like, that's really it with the co-op, you know? But, and honestly, like, yeah, like, hell, like, if you want better co-op, but keep it Halo, just play with the trilogy and Reach and all the other ones that have co-op in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, you know, the only thing that sucked is I enjoyed when Halo had explanation as to certain games why there was co-op. Like, I mean, obviously Halo 3 is the best, like, explanation because you get to play with Arbiter the whole game.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that was
Arbiter
cool.
as a character, and I also feel like a disservice was done to him this game as well, but you know,
I know, the Grunt mentions him, and that's it. That's all they do with him.
You know, but who knows? You know, I mean, I have a feeling that they're gonna release like one good DLC story patch, and then they are gonna possibly move on to something hopefully better than this.
Well, yeah, it's always like that juggle between like, oh, are they going to keep up with this game and be like, oh, we're gonna do, like what people said, oh, we're gonna have this game for like 10 years or something, filled with content, all this other stuff, and like, to me personally, now that I'm just like, well, like what you said, they'll probably just release a DLC and then like, you know what, fuck this, we're not doing any more of this, you know.
I'm curious.
All they did was
oh, sorry.
I was gonna say they recorded that fucking pug Remember? And then I was like, yeah, that's got to be the flood, though, right? Flood noises they're doing with that.
I will be very interested to see what this game looks like in a year from now, as far as the single player.
Me too, 100%, definitely.
I wonder, like, I wonder if they're going to bring in new biomes, new environments with the DLC, or if they're just gonna reuse what they already have and just add new.
Already, yeah, I was gonna say already. I could imagine, right? If they're going to do a flood type DLC, could you imagine open world where I was actually watching a lore video, right, of the flood and how like their area of a ring would look like, right? You've seen the concept, and my bro knows what I'm talking about. You've seen the cutscene about the origins and how their physiology, evolution, and how they take over something works. Could you imagine Chief just running around a flood-infested area, and it's like, it's not just grass and all that stuff. You guys know what I'm talking about. It's literally flood flesh he'd be walking around in. It'd be very creepy, but also very cool at the same time because, he could be in constant danger.
That's the thing. That's the thing that sucks about this as well, that we are missing out on. I would have loved to see a place like the market map that we have, or in like Halo 3 when they had Zazo Highway and stuff like that. We're going to be missing out so far on opportunities of exploring something so different from just grass and mountain range areas and stuff like that, that it sucks that they just were attached to one place. That's one of the huge gripes that we've had with this game, and with the DLC. And now that you have the grappling hook and you have so much more opportunities to do so many different things, and you can also have places that would also limit his movement, and that's what would kind of make it cool, is that you got to use this grappling hook differently. You can grapple to cover and stuff like that, grab weapons, but now when you're in an environment that the enemy can completely control, that seems like it would be so fun to see. But I don't know if we can do it. They need to really get their level design game up as well. Spartan Lock DLC, I don't know if I'd be excited about it. But they can't do anything about the Infinite, because the Banished literally took it over and destroyed it within 4 minutes. That's basically what Escherim said. So like, it would be so pointless, other than just maybe like an account of what he saw. But other than that, he has to either go to Zeta, which I'm gonna do lazily probably, or find a way to do something off planet, which would have been probably a better idea in my opinion.
They have anything is possible now that they've introduced time travel into the equation.
It's like the one I actually discussed this with M, that like the thing they're doing with Locke, they could actually redeem him in a sense, because I feel like this, like we discussed, I don't think he's like a jerk or an asshole character. It's just, again, the writers made him out to be that all he cared about was getting Chief, and I'm like, you realize who you're talking to, right? And like, oh, you cracked his visor. Like, oh, you think like he's gonna give a shit about that? He would whoop your fucking ass in less than a minute.
But yeah, that's basically all I've got for Halo right now.
Yeah, same.
Hopefully, time isn't an enemy to this game, and we have some good news about it, and maybe a huge DLC. The last thing that, actually, you know what? Let me ask this: what is, if you can add a wish list to this game in terms of story, what is one thing that you definitely put on that list? Would you want a Spartan Lock story? Would you rather want a continuation of the story but with the flood? What exactly are you looking for as a DLC patch?
Well, I already said my piece. Like I said,
Yeah.
I'd love a flood DLC, and I'd love to go see, again, like I said, this would be great for the open world now aspect, because I would want to just be going around a whole flood infested area, and then again, the ground itself is literally be like flood flesh. It'd be creepy and scary, but also awesome to explore at the same time.
Well, for one thing, I'd like a way to replay story missions so the skulls aren't lost. So you don't have to restart a whole nother thing to get the skulls that you missed.
Oh God.
What I don't understand, right? Real quick again about the world, right? So you got 3 specific zones, right? You got kind of your left zone and then the bottom zone and the right zone.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that only 2 zones were for the open world. The third one was locked off for story missions. I was like, what?
Yeah. And then
that was a waste of space. I'm sorry.
And I was just really surprised that there's like they're missing just basic things with this, not only just like the story, but just like the structure of how the game is made. It's really bizarre just how, like, because there's no, I know we've harped on this before, they're like, there's no co-op, there's no forge, there's no way to replay missions, and it's just, to me, I just wish they I don't even know if like a 6 to 8 month delay could have saved it, but I wish they had just released the multiplayer now and then did the campaign like 6 to 8 months later and just have all the things that we wanted. But as far as just story DLC, I don't have a good answer, honestly, just because I'm not like emotionally invested in this world anymore. So I don't have anything that I really like wish for other than for it to just be competent. Just anything that they do, I just wish for it to be competent.
It's very what I was gonna say. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was just gonna say real quick, was like, it's very rarely that I'm like, oh, I enjoyed the multiplayer more than I did the single player, or more like, okay, the multiplayer's good, do the campaign later when you guys got time, you know, because like it was like with what is it? It was with I think with Red Dead and Cyberpunk specifically. I said, oh, delay the multiplayer because you know the campaign will be good, so like, you know, that'll give us time. Granted, with Cyberpunk, it's like, unfortunately, the campaign sucked fucking ass, so you know.
Anyways, I had a lot of fun. I hope to do something like this again with y'all.
Me too.
All right, you guys take care. All right.
All right. Have a good one, everyone. And thank you as always, Clay, for coming by. Appreciate it as always, man.
No problem.
Alrighty. Catch y'all later. Bye.
Bye.